I think he should have board seats immediately. I know it's a passive stake. I know he's not outright calling for any particular change. I definitely think management should be engaging with him. Maybe they already have. And who else should have input into strategic direction and management of this company? Elon Musk has 80 million followers, and if he disappeared, I bet a great big chunk of daily engagement, at least among young men between the ages of 18 and 54, or whatever the demographic is, would literally disappear. So I hope they listen to him. I don't know that I'll agree with what he thinks they should do, but if somebody with 80 million followers wants to have say, and you have a board filled with people who don't even use the product, don't even tweet, which has been the problem with this company for 10 years now, why wouldn't you want to hear what he has to say? Do you want famous people to continue to come here and interesting people continue to engage? Or do you want them to keep disappearing and going off to Instagram and other platforms, which has been the trend in the last 5 years? So ask yourself, what's best? Probably best to listen to the power users, something that they've almost not done since the very beginning.
There are so many interesting things to consider here. Number one, his stake is now 4 times the size of Jack Dorsey, right? One of the founders. So that's interesting in and of itself.
Out.
I get that, but still, right? But still. And it's a single class of stock. So it's not like some of the other large technology companies that we have gotten used to talking about, where the founder has retained a large portion of control through a dual class. And I'm just wondering, and you sort of alluded to it by suggesting as your first comments that, oh, he should have board seats right now, whether a passive stake to begin with becomes something more.
I guess that'll depend on whether or not he gets bored with this, or whether or not they actually want to engage with him and listen to him. But I would tell you that when I scan the 13Fs and some of the other people that are involved in Twitter, Kathy's an example. I'm sure she wants to hear what he wants to do, right? She's a huge fan of Tesla and presumably Elon Musk's. So it's not as though he would have to do anything unilateral here. So if you pull out the passives, the Vanguards, the BlackRocks, the State Streets, and you ask yourself, who else on this list of 13F filers, who else on this list of large holders in this stock might be interested in a different approach to monetization, to how they deal with free speech, to centralization versus decentralization? Who else might be receptive? Pretty much everyone. The last time we talked about this, Judge, was in December. And I pointed out that take out the market cap growth because that's not relevant. Just in terms of gains for shareholders, this is a zero. Nobody's made any money in this since the IPO. Even with today's gain, that's still true. They've issued a ton of stock options to employees and executives, but there's been no growth for shareholders. So they've made progress in monetizing, but it's still a pretty tiny company. Annual revenue is about the size of Olive Gardens. But it's a massive megaphone, and the power of Twitter is undeniable. So I think that we should be considering other directions for this company.
Okay, well, I'm glad you ended there because that's where I want to go next. What if, and this is perhaps a big what if, but Gordon Haskett, the firm today, suggests when Musk explored the idea of taking Tesla private, he got advice from Silver Lake, whose Egon Durbin is a Twitter director. Quote, that connection seems relevant. We don't think anyone should sleep on the idea that Musk and Silver Lake might take Twitter private. What do you think about that?
Look, this might be the type of asset that's better off in privately controlled hands. I'm not saying in Elon Musk's privately controlled hands, but just generally speaking, there's a reason why the New York Times has always been a dual share class, and the family remains in control of all the voting rights. And you don't have to agree with everything the New York Times does, but there's just something about the Times that's important to the public trust. Not to get into like a whole right versus left thing, but there are certain companies where it's better for the voting rights. And I don't know if this is definitely one of those. So if it were a private company versus a public company with maybe more input from the users, maybe that's a worse outcome. The power of Twitter and the influence of Twitter is really, really vast, and its ability to dictate how the world views events as they unfold. Like, it's really powerful. So maybe that might not be the best outcome for society.